action on this today. This is more informational, and we have been through a process right now. This is more like a second or third step in this process. The departments have been working through their budgets and submitting things back and trying to coordinate and get numbers to fit into boxes. And so right now we have three departments that are coming in this morning. We have Human Resources, the Justice Court, and Children's Justice Center that are coming in to talk about. And this is, again, this one here is more informational for us to have a little bit of questions back and forth and see the process of how we get to a final conclusions when it comes to budget. So our first one is Cammie with Human Resources. So Cammie, if you can kind of just give an overall of your methodology of how you got to these numbers and some of the requests that you might have.
Sure. I have, I'll do the staffing plan one first.
Yeah, BOE, that had a ton of feedback. Yeah, in BOE it did.
So I'll answer the staffing plan and the time limited together. Overall, I'm reducing one position, the position of office manager at the same level as a specialist. So with that, we'll have a reduction in the total salary, which will be $40,963, a reduction in the benefits, which is $27,619. Then there were some errors on the report that we got, and we submitted documentation for those errors to be corrected for both mine and Mark's position. With that savings.
So, on your staffing plan real quick, or maybe this is probably maybe more for Deneen. The current budget on benefits is $400,000, and next year it shows him going up $6,000, but down $160,000 in benefits. What accounts for that?
For 2017 benefits, the benefits were entered into the system based upon the reports that we received, which were calculated on an average amount of benefits. And so it's probably high for their department. And so what I tried to do for 2018 before I sent the information out to the departments is come with a benefits number that was a little bit closer to in line of past history. So that accounts for the decrease. Probably in 2017, all the money for benefits isn't going to be spent.
Okay.
But I think it's important to try and narrow that gap so that there's a more realistic picture of what the budget is.
Yeah. Based on, and you're talking about department to department, because it will be different.
Right, it was, exactly.
Okay. Sorry, it just was a noticeable difference on the paper she gave us.
So in the overtime request that I sent you, that will be reduced by $298.50 because we are not going to fill that office manager position. And then it should be noted that our HR assistant was hired at Market Point last year. She didn't serve her probationary period successfully. So we have someone starting Monday who will start at step 1. So that represents a $4,898 savings. So the time limited that I've requested to help with the scanning of the employment records, the basic organizing of how we want it done, and then how to utilize the records office, and then having responsibilities, covering lunches, and then doing projects for our office. So that's what I've requested. So even with the time limited position, what I've submitted represents $40,116.60 decrease. And then
Where's the decrease coming from? Because all I see is a request for an additional $33,800.
that's the time limited. So the decrease is in eliminating the office manager position, in decreasing the HR assistant, and hiring them into step 1 versus market.
So, Deneen, are time limited included in the staffing plan wages?
No, That's only,
Okay.
they would be at the 1,200
Okay,
account.
so I guess so is the 740,000 showing on her budget reflective of eliminating a position?
It
No,
doesn't,
it wouldn't.
because that's
Okay.
what this meeting
That's
does.
where the numbers aren't making sense on my spreadsheet for me on that, okay. So you're going to eliminate a position that wages is how much?
The wages for the position that we're eliminating is $40,963.
Okay.
Then you have the benefits of $27,619.95.
Okay.
And then an additional benefits at $137.66.
Okay.
So the total benefit saving,
So to replace the 40,000, you want the 33,800, those two people, time limited to put in those two people are gonna help input all the stuff.
correct, and so
So in other words, this will be a half year, 1 year? What do you think is the time frame for it?
1 year.
Okay.
This is what we're asking for. So the benefits plus the wages and savings for that position equals $68,720.61.
Okay. And then so I can make this right, we showed your original request for overtime was 2,900, but you reduced it to what?
You took was it 280 off?
Yeah, $1,871.40. Now, when I was discussing with Deneen, we plan on doing comp time and not paying out overtime, but employees, if they don't use their comp time, which we manage it pretty well with how many hours they have and then asking them to take time off. But we've had some employees that have requested to be paid out overtime rather than be paid comp time. So the thought is, if we have it, and we don't use it, that's fine, but then if we don't have it and we get in a situation where we're supposed to pay people their overtime and we can't because we haven't budgeted for it.
Do we
That's
do that
the
in any other
request.
department? Do we pay out comp time in any other department?
Comp time and overtime, yes.
No,
So
not,
what,
to
so
me, they're different. I
they are
guess.
different. So
Okay.
comp time, if you work regular hours, then it goes into a comp time bank at 1.5 times. So if the comp time is paid out based on how many hours of comp time, they're paid out at a regular rate. Overtime doesn't go to a comp bank. They selected when we run payroll every week, whether it's overtime or comp time. If it's overtime, it's paid out in their paycheck at 1.5 times the regular rate of pay. Did I answer your question?
So, I guess it answers the question, but my question is with Workday
Mm-hmm.
and bringing in 2 temps to do all the scanning and doing all the paper, eliminating the paper,
Mm-hmm.
the efficiencies that we gain from that, why are we now adding overtime and or comp time to your office? Because if we're becoming more efficient, I would think that we
It's-
would have a decrease.
So we will have a decrease in 2019, but we're still gaining efficiencies. So we're going live now. We're not going live with the last module till January 8th. We have recruiting files, we have old W-4s, we have,
Yeah, but that's what the temp people are doing.
right,
But the temp people don't get comp time or overtime.
correct.
So if we're still implemented for all of 2018, your staff has been training for the last few months and will continue to do so. I guess I'm just not seeing, why does it take us 6 months of training and a year of using it before we're finally efficient in it? I understand we're not gonna be fully efficient, but now we're adding time that we didn't do this year when we've been implementing and training, which was really hard.
Well, this year we didn't have an overtime budget, so I have, stated if I need them to work, then I need them to understand that it's just gonna be comp time.
And I guess why the change for next year if we're gonna be more efficient? That's really my question is we granted this because we agree that it's necessary and we're excited to have it, but if we're gonna be more efficient, then why would we be expanding overtime? I mean, to me, it seems like everybody's job should be reducing the number of minutes and or hours spent on specific tasks, therefore freeing up more time.
It should be, but it's going to take through next year to realize those efficiencies, to get people trained, to have them utilize Workday the way that it can be utilized.
But as I look at the budget on this thing, we're reducing $68,000 in one position. And so there's some efficiencies in that. But again, we're $33,000 at $33,800 on the temp, so that we can continue to go. That's how I'm.
Well,
Correct.
we're only saving 35,000 because we've
30.
eliminated one position, but we talked about cutting 3 positions when we implemented Workday. That was what the commission and the
Originally,
discussion was last year,
it was 3 positions over 3 years.
so.
So we'll
So-
implement in
But see, eliminating a
2018.
position and then adding 2 temps,
Yeah.
I mean-
So I'm eliminating positions ahead of time, because
No,
I
I understand.
stated 3 positions in 3 years, so we have eliminated one this year, and then next year.
I guess my question is one of the positions we're eliminating, the plan always was, one of the positions was after a certain individual left, retired, whatever the case was, we were never gonna replace that, and we're still replacing it. I guess that's the one I'm really wondering why we replaced it. But that was always the plan, as I understood, and I
It
didn't know the
was
plan
always
changed.
the idea, so in actual reality, when it's playing out, we've had 2 time limited people working this year, and we've been able to absorb those and reduce the cost of paying benefits and reduce the cost of the individual's pay. So I guess I would say,
But we
if-
gave those time limited knowing that you were gonna need help because of the implementation, right?
so implementation is one part, and then
Mark, will you hold the button on the one on the right? Maybe if we turn that one off, we don't get the echo. Yeah, thank you.
so when we go live with Workday, it's not going to be day one, we realize all the efficiencies and we have everything done. On January 8th, we'll have the tool to be able to start gaining efficiencies.
Yeah, so let me work it through, just for understanding purposes on my point. So we're eliminating one position of the 68, but we are, because we have to continue through this process. I mean, whenever you implement something, there's a big push to get it all in place.
Right.
It's easier to maintain
Right.
than it is to actually put it in place. And so, I can see the 33,000 in there. Where I'm trying to understand is, if we have the 33,000 in there for limited employees to come in and help with that push, the overtime, I'm wondering about. And the reason why I'm wondering about it is because it looks like we've hired limited employees to help take some of that burden off. So help me understand, the importance of the overtime part of this.
So we have situations in HR, we have ebbs and flows just like anyone else. When we do W-2s, we hope to have a seamless process in this, but there are instances where we do require overtime. When we're getting open enrollment done and benefits fair stuff and having people come in at 6:30 a.m. to do some of this stuff, we try and manage it by letting them go early, but there are times when we have deadlines that we just can't.
And so, when I look at it, in 2012, there was no overtime. In 2013, there was $4 in overtime. And then 2014, 238, 2015, 830, and then 2016 was a 26 that was in there on the actual spent. And so I'm just trying to get a handle on, it looks like historically it's been low, but it's been creeping up. And so I'm trying to understand that dynamic of where it's continuing, and if the time limited and the reduction and trying to build this now, and then do we anticipate that it's gonna start going down in the years to come, or
Correct.
is this a trend for the?
No, I think the idea with any budget is that you try and right-size your organization. And so we're still working through how to right-size our organization, how things are changing, how additional, we we don't have a full-time safety person, so additional responsibilities that other people may need to push on to the hourly people that they can do so that we can make time. I mean, we're still right-sizing our organization, we're not there yet, so I
So-
would imagine the trend would go down.
I guess my question is then, if a safety person adding the responsibility, then I don't know why we wouldn't ask for a safety person. When we have 4 people in recruiting, and quite honestly, all the complaints we get from department heads are, we're very inefficient in there. I mean, it takes us 3 weeks to even notify and post, and again, this is their language, it's probably not actual, but, you know, that's the feeling with inside the county, and so the commission has generally, at least since Commissioner Lee and I have been here, we've never given overtime and temps. We either
Okay.
give temps to eliminate overtime, and that's what we're trying to wrap around is what are these, because that, it really is a minuscule amount of overtime, we understand that. But what is it, because it's so minuscule, that we can't pass on to the temporary employees? You know, and that's kind of our concern, because we know you have ebbs and flows and we know you manage it. So why can't we bank 8 hours when it's going to be October, or even ahead of time, anticipate and let somebody take some hours, you know, and let you manage that so that they can take time off maybe in July when they want it, even though we know they're gonna earn it at benefits fair, because after this year, this will have been your second, you'll have a very good handle on how much time and how much effort and things like that.
Well, they can't do it ahead of time, we don't permit that. They can't take comp time that they haven't accrued.
Okay. That's a good point, but we can store it, and why do we have to pay it in the same year then, I guess?
So I know that I've had this discussion with the clerk auditor's office. I believe that, comp time should be paid out in the same year that they accrue, so that comp time is not carrying over from year to year and then you're paying it out at a higher rate.
Yeah, we don't wanna get into that.
Well, no, and I'm
But
not.
we do that with other departments, so
I
I
know,
think my
I know.
I don't think we
department
should
and the
pay any
clerk
of it out.
auditor, we're the only two. You have to pay it out.
Because then the
They've
1.5,
earned it.
the 1.5 turns out to be at where they're at,
See, so the question is
not where they were.
salaried employees or exempt status employees, they're required, and if the job takes 48 hours, they have to work 48 hours. We don't give them comp time.
Right.
Their complaint is, which is more than half of our full-time staff are exempt status, they get the short end. They're right. They do more or as many hours of work or more, but yet they don't see any of these benefits, and so all of them want to go back to non-exempt status. So I guess the question is, why don't we exempt status your workforce? So that then
So-
you can manage it, because
With
you
the
can control that.
With the Fair Labor Standards Act, in order to be exempt from overtime, you have to meet certain criteria and in order to be exempt status. And we do that, we just went through that with the potential FLSA changes that were supposed to go into effect last December but failed. We went through all the job descriptions and we did that test on every position. And where we had our analyst ones as exempt, they don't meet the qualifications. So the county as a whole could decide to put them back at hourly, because it's a privilege for the county to be able to have someone who's exempt from that and not pay them overtime. But if you, and there are provisions that allow governments to pay comp time
Right.
for salaried individuals.
So the difference is, though, the FLSA Act, the reason it's set up and the reason nobody's exempt is because that position doesn't meet a criteria, because it's not supposed to have overtime. Meaning in those rare cases, those jobs aren't designed to necessarily be over 40, was the attempt.
So that's not my understanding. When we had labor law changes in the 40s with individuals who were requiring outlandish hours of work, the Fair Labor Standards Act tried to curb that. So if someone did work overtime, they're paid at time and a half to make it more beneficial for them to work overtime. Now, you have an exempt status. It's available for certain individuals. If you're a professional, if you're administrative, if you're executive, there are certain tests that you have to do. So the question is, why not make everyone hourly? You could. Everyone would love that. we would love to be paid time and a half for what we do. But it saves the county money when people qualify to be exempt
Sure.
from overtime.
So I guess the commission's concern is, and this is something that we've tried to talk to every department, this is not unique to your department at all. But the problem is what we expect our department heads to do is to manage the workload and make sure everybody's working in an efficient manner, always.
Sure.
And controlling and making sure there is no overtime, because again, where I believe there's no emergencies in government, there's no real emergencies that can't be handled within the workday, because, you know, for the
I think
most part.
that's fair to a point, but I would argue that in payroll, there are emergencies. And
Sure, there
getting
can
people
be.
enrolled in benefits, there are emergencies. I can't have my payroll person go home until payroll's been, the ACH file has been uploaded. Sometimes that goes till 9 o'clock at night.
Sure. But
If
the
we-
following week, payroll is very light because we're now in the middle of a pay period. And so comp time can be given or restored to still an 80-hour work period.
So the work period for non-exempt individuals is 7 days. So if they work overtime in that 7-day period, they're entitled to time and a half or comp time. Now, if they could take it the next week, there are lots of reports that have to be done, and we have a payroll person working full-time
Right.
during the non-payroll weeks, doing non-payroll items.
It's a
So I
balancing
understand
act.
where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I'll do as you direct.
Well, for me, it's just a balance of, you know, the role of the limited employees and also the overtime
And I would take
making
your
those-
direction there too, if you wanted to not add as many hours, you know, I would take that
Okay.
direction as well.
Well, and this meeting's kind of just back and forth to understand kind of where you're coming from and what your needs are, so that you can, you know, fulfill requirements that you have
Sure, I understand.
in your department, and then for us to kind of understand too. And we'll go back and forth. This is, you know, this is
Sure.
what, round 3 or round 2 or whatever, and we'll kind of go back and forth. Deneen, any questions that you have or anything that you see on there that we need to bring up?
We were gonna talk about her entry for cell phone, I thought.
Okay.
You had made a request that, for cell phones for additional staff outside of you and Mark.
Correct.
I guess the question is why? So,
So our whole department uses their cell phones to.
I understand, but everybody can say that, and the reason I say that, because, and this to me is where the slippery slope is, right? If all of a sudden people say, well, I'm answering my phone at 6 o'clock at night because the HR director called me and there's something I need to do for my job, and they're answering a question for clarification, do they start counting that as hours for overtime? And
No, that
you
would be
know.
de minimis.
so,
We have individuals who talk to vendors, who talk to our brokers, who use their cell phone for work purposes outside of business hours. So the instruction can be only Mark and I answer cell phones and no one else uses their cell phones, but I do believe that would make it much more difficult for us to operate.
If, I'm just trying to work this through, if we didn't have cell phones, it would be pretty typical for somebody, if they were home, to be called on their landline. I don't remember ever a time in the past in which we paid for somebody's landline.
I
So
don't
we
know that
had-
people have landlines
Well,
anymore.
I'm talking about.
I don't.
I'm talking
You
about
couldn't
years.
call me on a
the
landline.
Spanish Fork one is fantastic, actually.
I'm talking about years ago.
Sure.
Before,
It's only $10
kind of before
or
the
$15 a
the
month.
cell phone.
Yeah.
Before the cell phones came out, wherever you could reach out and touch you wherever you're at.
Sure.
You know, we would, if there was a question, we'd call their home and say, hey, I've got a question on this, and can you answer it? Now, they're off. Now, you might get them, you might not. That was always the problem with the landline. But we would never pay for part of their landline as we're trying to reach out. And so I'm just wondering where do we go? Everyone could use a cell phone. Usually everyone has a cell phone. And some people have cell phones that they probably don't mind if you were to call them to ask a question even on their personal cell phone that we're not paying for as a county. So I'm trying to find that balance.
Well,
of
especially where we don't pay per minute, it's a plan.
Yeah,
Right.
so
And
I'm wondering where that balance is for who needs are we paying for something that
And there's another part that
Minimus.
logistically, that,
It's a de minimis thing, you know, in the
Right.
sense that I don't think that they would mind. I don't pay for my assistant to have a cell phone, and I call him after hours, and I really don't think, now, it's a different thing, but I'm just saying that I'm wondering if, where that line is. I just don't know
Well, I
where
think
that's at.
that the distinction is it a de minimis call, or is it something where you're asking them to work after hours, to speak with vendors, to work things out, to work on projects, and trying to outline that?
so I guess the other side and the other concern that I have with this, and this is the slippery slope for also government, is any time the government pays for a cell phone, that cell phone is grammable. And it's a record, and that's the other problem is where you guys are always dealing with the sensitivity of so many issues. If we start doing work at home, we're saying, well, I've got a county-approved cell phone and I'm working from home to do it. You know, I know we have a process to allow work from home, but the question is, should we? Because again, where's the line drawn? If all of a sudden they're working from home and we get a grandma request, and so we have to go over to their home and search?
Well, my
I mean, you
understand
see
with
what I'm saying?
grandma is that it's limited to the scope of what they're asking. So if someone's asking for a cell phone record of how long they talked and how often they talked
Happens all
to
the
a
time.
certain number, you're right. I think that's acceptable. And I think everyone on my team understands the risk.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
okay.
Anything else? The IT one, or anything?
I just don't know what the other IT is, but I'm sure we'll get into that data sometime. It's only $2,400.
That was for a second laptop in their office.
Oh, why?
Because we use it for training, and we take it home after hours and work on it, and we've worked from home and had training at the same time, or had 2 trainings going on at the same time.
I guess, I mean, a second laptop, I don't know. I think if you wanted to replace your desktop with a laptop, that would be different. And a few people, like Mark or whoever, and then you are mobile, that would be more understandable to me, but to have
I didn't know that was an option. If it is,
something
then,
it's what I did in my office, Commissioner Lee
and
was
I
set up
think
that
that
way,
would
and I followed
be
that.
a great compromise.
So I think maybe if we look at that and have IT check for you and see,
Sure.
and see if it works.
I think that would serve the purpose of what we're intending to do.
And then that way you are mobile, and if that works for you and whoever
does.
else needs it, then great. If not, let's readdress that
Sure.
specific item.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a laptop, but I never take it.
I never take it really either. I mean,
It just sits there. I've got
I
I
can.
got an iPad,
Yeah,
you know,
I don't have an
that I work
iPad.
off of, but it's
but I
not
am
the same.
mobile if necessary.
If necessary, yeah. Just- it came with the job. It was already there.
And I was jealous of your setup, so I copied it.
Okay. Deneen, anything?
Do you want to talk about some of the other new requests that aren't on the summary list? So that would be drug testing, workday virtual trainings, transferring some of the testing services that HR has historically paid for to
Oh,
the
yes.
sheriff's office, and
Yep.
then the restricted funding for Mercer contract.
Yeah, can you start with the Mercer contract on that?
Additional.
That $50,000 additional.
Now
on
that is kind of a fail-safe if we get into a situation where we have to enter into a contract to fix time tracking or change it completely or change our compensation plan, and it's something that we're not equipped to do, then that's something I'd like to at least have in restricted.
Okay, so
that
you're
we
just
have
looking
that
for a line
ability.
item in case of emergency.
Correct.
something you don't
So
necessarily
something
need
that's
for.
restricted,
Okay.
that if it's needed, at least there's the budget for it.
I support that kind of budgeting. So.
I saw that you have it listed down here as restricted.
So the transfer to the sheriff's office is
The
interesting.
promotional testing,
Yeah, so I think there's a broader discussion, and unfortunately, it's weird to have a three-way conversation without the third party here. I know the sheriff's department is willing to accept a lot of these things and wants some additional responsibilities or additional help from your office. But to me, it sounds like what they're requesting is much more than this. And maybe you're not familiar with their
With
request from their
additional
budget season.
help, or
I think they literally want somebody down there tracking all the time tracking, and they want an HR person on hand down there to
Right.
go along with this.
And I don't think that's the best decision. I wouldn't decentralize HR. And I've talked to the sheriff about creating a new position, and if he has responsibilities that he needs done, then it's at a standstill, because Mike Forshee didn't send me any more than 2 responsibilities to create a job description with. So if it's something they want,
So the
wanna
1 or
add to
2
their staffing
responsibilities
plan.
you don't see really as
well,
a
it's
necessary.
promotional testing. If they want someone to do promotional testing, they need to hire someone to do promotional testing and keep track of the training. But as far as someone on site to do workers' comp, administer FMLA, ADA, no, I don't support that.
No, and I don't either. And I hadn't seen the scope of what they want. I just know in general they want somebody there, and that was my question. I didn't
So they
know.
need to work with me to do a job description. And they need to get me at least
But the
more than 2
FMLA and
essential
ADA
functions.
shouldn't leave your office.
I agree, which is why they didn't have much of a job description.
But my understanding is the testing, for promotional testing they do, and I believe we're talking lieutenants and sergeants at that point, right?
Correct.
I think they test annually or every other year. Every other year, and test anybody who applies and have a scoring system, and so
They've
they
been
work
going,
off of that.
so their list is good for 2 years, but they're going through it in 6 to,
Okay, so that's
12
the need
months.
for,
and they're doing it every year.
Okay.
Because once they get past a first third, then the bottom 2/3 can't pass the background check. So those lists aren't lasting 2 years as
Okay.
originally intended.
okay. That was maybe the disconnect in my mind, so. But your office has always been able to accommodate the 1 or 2 days that has required. You still see that as something that your office can still do? We don't need to bring on somebody for just a couple days a year?
My understanding was the sheriff felt it was something they could use full-time, and they wanted to create a position.
I guess I'm asking you, based on the
It would have
limited that they've
nothing to
given
do
you?
with my department. It wouldn't be someone who works for HR. So it would be on the sheriff to work with us to
Okay.
create a new job description and
Okay,
outline what they're looking for and what they want.
fair enough.
So on the workday virtual trainings then, what, with the 7,100?
So the workday trainings, we added some to the budget. And then the additional 7,000 was the amount that went above the 65,000. Now granted, if we cut some things out, then that would be something
So
we
why is
could-
it not in the contract?
Oh, our contract's done. We have 18 credits, and we will have spent those doing implementation. So ongoing training in an HRIS system is very important. So you have employees who are up to date, who are familiar with what's going on. I have a list that I can provide you of all the classes that I believe
Well,
So does this go on every year?
they
This is
should.
gonna be going on every single year.
so I guess my confusion is something that Workday presented, and maybe you can clarify the difference for us. They told us that the first year we can expect 2 updates.
Mhm.
And because of those updates and the changes in the system, they're gonna make sure we don't fail, and they are gonna be here and make sure we have all that.
Correct.
So why are we paying for additional training? Cause that doesn't
So-
sound like that commitment. That sounds like, hey, we'll be here
This
if you pay
doesn't
for it.
have, yeah, this doesn't have to do with those updates. I have HCM transactions, organization fundamentals, onboarding in Workday, Workday report writer, calculated fields, advanced business processes, advanced reporting and analytics. We've taken the beginner level of these Workday trainings. So there's more that we can learn. The more we learn, the more we're able to configure it to our requirements for the county, rather than purchasing an HRIS system, having it be stagnant and then be out of date because we don't know all the things there are to know about it.
So this is just for your department. These aren't virtual trainings for countywide.
Correct.
Okay.
If there were super users who wanted to come to these, we would invite them. It wouldn't be something that's just limited. These are on-site trainings. There's no travel costs. There's no overnight stays. But yeah, they would be open to anyone who wanted to come, and we could even do it in here if there were enough people interested.
But for purposes of budgeting from here on out, it should be something that we have a line item for every
Correct.
year, is what, Aaron,
Correct.
instead of additional budgeting. So this would be an increase that would, and is it pretty consistent every year, or is it something that we have to
It probably
pick and
depends on
choose?
which one she chooses.
Is it menu-based? I want this, and this year.
It should taper off, because once we've done the basic classes, then we get into the advanced classes, then we're getting into classes that are catching people up who are new, or items that we don't quite know how to do yet, but there's a class out there that we can learn it. So it should taper off.
Okay.
Could you maybe just talk about the pricing structure? Because I think it's a charge
Yes.
per credit hour, and then maybe
Correct.
like on average, what a credit.
So you purchase, thank you. You purchase credits in the system. So right now with our original training, we're using those credits, and the credits are $650 a piece. And then depending on the class, it's either 1 credit or 1.5 credits to take the class. And those classes last between 10 hours over 2 days to 15 hours over 3 days.
Okay.
Drug testing. Are we
Drug
just going
testing,
through
we
more?
fell short. We do random drug testing, and we also pay for pre-employment drug testing for the entire.
Right, we just have been short funding that the last few years.
Mhm.
Okay. Only one question, which normally you won't hear me complain about a cut, but your travel budget has gone from 20,000 to 8,500.
Yeah, because we had our budget adjusted to include workday, traveling to go to those in-person trainings.
Okay. Well, the year before that, they spent $10,000, and I know you weren't here, but
Between
the question I have is for the trainings that you know you would go to, or the UAC events, or those things,
Mhm.
whether it's you, Mark, whoever you send, does $8,500 cover what you can anticipate for your conventions and or trainings out
I know
of?
mine are about 2,000. Do you know how many
I'm sorry,
the trainings that you plan to attend next year?
yeah, mine would run about 3,000.
So do you have 3,000 for each of us?
Well, it says 8,500.
Yeah, it was 3,500 for the HR director, 3,500 for the assistant HR director, and then $1,500 for staff.
I do think that's sufficient.
Okay, good deal. That's all the questions I have.
Right.
Can
Anything
I
else,
just
Dan?
ask,
Yeah.
Yes.
it's a general question, it's not really specific to the HR budget, but obviously the county's been going through a market study, and so I'm just trying to gauge like a time frame of when like information might be available so that the budget can be adjusted before it's adopted in December.
So she is coming out on October 17th. She'll meet with department heads again, and she should be presenting her numbers. She'll also meet with the commissioners. And then she should have her new structure, and what she told me was she'll have it no later than mid-November with her new structure and what she recommends, and she'll come out and present that to the commissioners. So you'll
Or
have
anyway,
it
just
before.
FYI on the 17th to get the meeting with commissioners as close to before noon as possible,
As close to before noon?
Yeah.
Okay.
knowing we have commission meeting that day. Well, that's before commission meeting, so not a problem.
And we're gonna have a work session on that day.
The big one.
It'll be half an hour on water stuff. Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the information. We'll take it from here and keep working through the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I don't see the justice court here.
I do see our CJC, we could go out of order if that's okay with Deneen.
Yeah.
Well, we'd love to meet with Rebecca. It's not the easiest one. The surveyor is the easiest. Unless his assistant's watching, it's not gonna be that easy.
All right. Thank you for being here, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Our intent is to, look down through, answer some questions or ask some questions if needed and necessary, and give you an opportunity to kind of go down through the budget that you've planned and tell us where you're at.
Okay, great. So this year we're not,
You don't need to pause her.
oh,
I was just going to say that you actually have a moment to try to call control.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Sure.
So I didn't want to
Okay.
cut you off and
Yep.
hear all the dialogue.
Yeah,
so
We're
that
trying
was
to
taken-
get him on the phone.
of course.
Sorry, Rebecca.
Oh, no problem.
That's why I hate connector flights too. It always makes me so nervous.
Yeah.
What time do you guys leave?
My flight's at 5, cause originally I was gonna go on the same flight as him, but I got so nervous with budget meetings. That I moved it back and he still went on the earlier flight.
Mine's at 3.
He wanted to see Atlanta Airport, the whole thing, while he waited for us.
So that means I'll put you in Atlanta later.
Yeah, we land at like 11. But the mayor just, they emailed and said, we can't probably meet until like 9:15, so we can sleep in an extra 10 minutes.
Won't be sleeping in for us.
No, still be 7 a.m. Still be normal.
Coordinated with Scott about,
Yeah, he's calling me at 2:30 today.
okay, I looked over the initial scope and just, I suggested they sit down.
Yeah. Still nothing?
I have to delete everything if I misdial. There's no backspace.
Spring, are you able to reach him via text? He's,
Just waiting.
okay. It's still a concept of if you, why do you need overtime? I mean, it's not financially it's not a big deal because they're just sitting. Right, but. You sure you're calling correct?
I am the problem.
Sure.
When I tried the first time, I got him and went to voicemail, but now I'm not getting a dial tone, so it's us, it's not him. But if you'd like to continue to try it, it's fine. You are still being.
Call
recorded.
Nathan Ivy.
Calling Nathan
Ivy.
Please enjoy this Verizon ringback tone while you're partying.
Hey, Renee's having a problem getting through, so if you ever get a, if you get a, call waiting notification.
Call waiting, huh?
But, yeah, we've got Rebecca here, so I'll just hold you up so you can hear.
Okay, perfect.
All right, Rebecca, go ahead and start.
Okay. So as you guys are familiar with the Children's Justice Center model, we are required to get 4 different funding sources. Not only federal, state, but also local, county, and private. So we always exhaust all other sources of funding before we come to the county and ask for additional funding. This year, we are not requesting additional funding from the county unless there is a market study and there are increases to the staff, then I ask that the county cover those increases.
Okay.
Yep, I didn't see anything on here, that gave me pause on it, and I think that's fair. Let's see, we do see, well, they're grant funded, the VOCA grant, the unexpected grant request that you have on here.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah, if you look at line 2, I actually found out last week that we were awarded that grant, so that will be added, I'm asking that that be added into,
The
our 2018.
200,000?
The 218.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes, and then the other 200,000, again, we are always looking for opportunities in order to expand services, so I don't want to leave us short if we do have those opportunities.
Yeah.
I think this year we did increase it by 150,000, so.
These are, I mean, these are ones that necessarily are not hitting the county. So they're
Right.
not, they're not additional asks for the county. You're just informing us that there are additional asks that you have that are out there.
Mhm.
Then I see the one you have on here, with the market study implementation,
Yes.
and that one you have listed down.
Yeah, but again, I mean, I don't think we've heard back anything on that amount, so.
No, and we will know that though. By then, we'll know.
Okay,
So
all right,
Okay,
yeah. So.
obviously, the commission will cover whatever is necessary for implementation.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, other than that, I mean, you know, we, just to let the commission know, we have increased this last year. We're set to increase services we're providing by over 1,000 more services. So, and that will, as we add this new program through this federal funding, we'll be increasing that even more. So, and then we get probably over $100,000 donated from the community in snacks for kids, in volunteer hours. That's a major source for us. So we appreciate our community's support. We
And for
rely
anybody
heavily.
watching the stream, she has the House of Hope.
Yes,
Hope
the
and Healing
Hope and Healing
Festival.
Festival this
Forget
year.
now that we changed it.
Yes, it's this year, so it's at the convention center on Friday and Saturday, the boutique and the tea party for the kids.
Oh, yeah.
So we rely heavily on our community for support.
It's a good event.
You guys have any other questions
No,
for me?
thank you for all you do.
thank you.
Thank you. Did you have anything?
I don't have
Listen,
any
the
questions.
Justice Court is not here, so we'll call you back when
But-
they get here.
I do want to just document that the county contribution right now for 2018 is budgeted at 165,000 compared to like a total budget of $2 million, just to
Yeah.
formalize and show like the return that the county's getting on its investment.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Well, we'll wait. We'll take a break. You can put that on. We'll be right back, or what do you? Hello?
Or like that Saturday morning. After these messages, we'll be right back.